And let us finish this, the 11th chapter of The Whispering Mountain by Joan Aiken. Everybody is in cells at Lord Mallin's castle. Erebus and Brother Ianto in one, the Seljuk in another. Owen's grandfather is in a cell. We don't know where yet. And, actually, he's supposed to be in the same cell as the Seljuk. And the Prince of Wales and Tom Dando are supposedly on their way. We will pick up from where Erebus discovered that the Seljuk's mustaches were removed. Let me out of here, you miscreants, cried another voice, that of Mr. Hughes. That is lucky you will be, one of Lord Mallin's men replied mockingly. I will put on record a very strong objection to the way in which I have been treated. Object away, replied his jailers, their voices retreating up the stairs. No extra charge for objecting round here. Mr. Hughes continued to seethe. Infamous, disgraceful, most improper, and he added, apparently to the Seljuk, I'm sorry to see you in the same predicament, my dear sir. And on what grounds has this insolent nobleman imprisoned you, may I inquire? Indeed, I am hardly aware. Sure, cognizant except that he seemed to have some notion that my researches might lead him to the harp of Teretu that he is so set upon, but when he discovered that I proposed reporting him to the Bow Street runners, he flew into a passion, fell into a taking, ran amuck, and had me imprisoned, laid by the heels, clamped under hatches. As you see, despotism, fumed Mr. Hughes. Why, the man's a fool. My grandson made off with the harp before you so much as set foot in Pennygaff. What could you know about the matter? To be sure, if that is not my old schoolfellow... other character. To be sure, if that is not my old schoolfellow, Owen Hughes, remarked Brother Ianto. Long time it is since we used to swing conkers together, and I'm sorry to learn you are down here too, Mr. Hughes, my little one. Why, Uncle Richards, is that you? I thought you were in China. I reckoned I would just step home, see, and take a look at the old country, Brother Ianto replied. But you are the proper custodian of the harp. Small wonder that a bird of prey has got his talons on you. Oh, as to that, Brother Ianto said comfortably, he might have spared to trouble himself, indeed, for it is well known among the monks of the order of St. Enodog that the harp was handed back to the last descendant of the original Teretu, and very proper, too. What? The harp handed back? Gasped Mr. Hughes. When did such a transaction take place, pray, and who was the descendant? Why, about 50 years ago it happened. A Miss Tigwin Jones she was, and in gratitude for the return of the harp, she presented the monks of St. Enodog with enough liniment to cure their chilblains for 2 generations. But if the harp was returned to her, how did it come to be discovered still in the ruins of the monastery? Mr. Hughes inquired. Oh, that will be because Mrs. Tigwin Jones was of a travelling disposition, preferred to leave the harp lodged at the monastery. She will have, very likely, it being a valuable article. Well, then, that is most interesting, to be sure, and news to me, but I presume Miss Tigwin Jones is dead, and she has not returned to claim the harp, and it makes no difference to the fact that my worthless grandson has now stolen the instrument, Mr. Hughes said bitterly. Oh, no, Mr. Hughes Bach, indeed you are mistaken there, Brother Ianto assured him, shaking his head at Erebus, who was on the point of bursting out. Quite otherwise the matter was. 2 thieves by the name of Bilk and Prigman stole the harp, kidnapping your grandson so as to put the blame on him. Seen by a young friend of mine, they were, stowing the harp in a cave at Nant Agadao, and left your grandson tied up as tight as a whiting to be killed by a landslide. Since then no one has clapped eyes on either the harp or the thieves. Duh, muttered Mr. Hughes, half convinced by hearing the story come from Brother Ianto. But in that case, where's my grandson now, and who's to be sure he was not in league with the thieves in the first place? Here Erebus could restrain herself no longer. Why, you silly old man, she cried indignantly. Black disgrace it is to have such doubts of your own flesh and blood, and the poor boy half breaking his heart, trying to get the harp back for you. Serve you right. It would indeed if Miss Tegwin Jones turned up and asked what right you have to keep your own museum covered in dust, with all its strings broken. An awful silence fell. Then Mr. Hughes inquired in an icy tone, May I have the honor to ask who it was that just spoke? Erebus, already repenting her outburst, did not, however, immediately reply, for in her excitement she had taken a couple of steps forward, and both tiger snakes, roused by this movement, were making their way purposely toward her. In his chamber above, the Marquis, listening at the earpiece which carried all the voices of the prisoners up to him, nodded thoughtfully and said to Garble, "So, I thought we should learn something, if they were all left tattled together. Miss Tegwin Jones, eh? Still, I expect she is dead long ago, and, after all, it was that rascally pair, Bilk and Prigman, who played me false. If they reappear, Garble, with or without the harp, have them clapped straight in a cell. I'll use no tools that turn in the hand." "What about the old man's grandson?" inquired Garble. "He's of no consequence, unless, indeed, he should lead us to Bilk and Prigman. Still, if he turns up while I'm gone, throw him in a cell too to await my return. Go on, my lord. Where would your lordship be going?" "Why, to Nantagadao, of course, fool. Where else? First, to lay that meddlesome Tom Dando by the heels, before he makes mischief between me and the Prince of Wales. I should be able to overtake him soon enough. Second, to search for Bilk and Prigman, since that is where the scoundrels were last seen with the harp. And lastly, I have a curiosity to see if I cannot unearth some of the fat Ottoman's little underground citizens. That would be a rare convenience indeed, a whole tribe of expert gold craftsmen at my bidding. Order my carriage round, Garble." "But, your lordship, it snows." "And so, what of it?" inquired Lord Malin coldly. "Should I be held up for a little snow?" "But, my lord, it is increasing to a regular blizzard." "Garble, I find you are becoming wearisomely interfering. Pray do as you are bid without further argument." And the Marquis, twirling his gold snake, shot Garble a look which made him turn pale yellow. "Order 15 relays of horses to accompany the carriage," Lord Malin called after him through the door, "and a footman to run ahead and clear the drifts. Let them be ready in 7 minutes. And that is the end of chapter 11.